Bob from Hey, okay, I guess it started now. I'm Bob from ILikeToMakeStuff. Welcome to BrainPick, and I'm glad to have you guys. Looks like we have a few people on. I got a big stack of questions started up, so we'll get going. Today I have Jay Bates here with me, and ready for you guys to ask some questions. So say hi, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
So we'll go ahead and get started. We got a lot of questions here, and the first one is for Jay. Like always, if you guys have questions, if it's for both of us, just say both at the beginning. Otherwise, just say who it's for, so we can make sure that you're getting the answer that you expect. So this one's for Jay. What bandsaw do you recommend for a shop, the same size as yours, home use only?
Well, I was just telling Bob, I'm not a big fan of telling other people where to spend their money, and I don't have much bandsaw experience with as far as my own personal use. I bought a little 9-inch, I think it was a Skill brand bandsaw a couple years ago, and I wouldn't recommend something that small. I think a 14-inch does everything that I need it to do, and if you want to do more resawing, then you can get a riser kit for most standard bandsaws. But 14-inch would be the way to go. And as far as what's out there, I purchased mine. It's the Grizzly Go55 LANV. It's their 30th anniversary edition of the 055 bandsaw that they have. And I mean, it does everything that I need it to do. I don't see any reason to get anything bigger than that. And as far as me comparing prices online, it seemed to be the best bang for the buck. And I'm pretty pleased with it. So, and I think Bob, you got the same one, right?
Yeah, I do, and I love it. It's awesome. It's a great saw. And I will say that as far as pricing, when my wife told me that she was going to give me that for Christmas, so Christmas Day I'm like online looking for the best price and everything, and I tend to go Amazon first because I'm a Prime member, and so it's cheap and easy to get stuff, and the prices always seem to be better on Amazon. Well, I looked at on the Grizzly site and saw a price there, and then I went to Amazon, and even with free shipping, the price was almost $300 more on Amazon. And
That's with all.
that's the first time I've ever seen a product, directly from the manufacturer being that much cheaper on their site. So if you do go for a big tool like that, bandsaw or otherwise, make sure you don't just look for Amazon type sites. Look at the manufacturer. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the Grizzly tools. When I was table saw shopping, it was the exact same way. Amazon was way more expensive than buying directly through Grizzly.
And it's weird too because it's actually sold by Grizzly on Amazon.
That's odd.
Yeah, it was weird. But even with the freight shipping, which was I think maybe $80 or something for the bandsaw, even with that, it was still $200 or $300 cheaper. So, but yeah, it's a great saw. So I think this is maybe for both of us. What made you get started with the YouTube channel and recording them, I guess, projects? So what about you? What got you started?
Well, before YouTube and my website, I was on Lumberjacks a lot, and I had my 2x4 bench that's on my website and YouTube. It was a pretty good seller as far as like the very little selling that I did, and I just wanted to share my plan with people on YouTube, and it was actually the 2x4 armchairs was the first thing to go up, and which is basically the same thing as the bench but shorter with arms. And after I had that on there, I realized that I did some more research into it and realized that, hey, you can actually make some money putting videos on YouTube. So my initial intention was to just make just a little bit of money to kind of recoup for the hobby, and it just kept going from there. And it's interacting with everybody. It's so addicting, and it's a cool way to share my stuff too. So.
Yeah, I would totally agree with about the interaction. That's one of the things that charges me up the most is just interacting with these people around the world that I have something in common with, even though I've never met them. And there's like a lot of positivity in the community, and that's motivating.
Yeah, it's a huge motivating factor. When you're selling something personally or whatever, you only get to interact with that one person, but then you randomly get some email from someone across the world who says they enjoyed this or whatever. It's just like, wow, it kind of makes you feel good.
Yeah. Actually, this is something I was thinking about earlier today, and I was going to ask you about. This isn't one of the questions. This is just from me. So I've heard several people on YouTube talk about how they handle negative comments and how, just different ways to handle it. And I got to thinking about, because I've had a couple recently that have just been just nasty, just mean people. And so I was thinking about how they're handled, and they're kind of handled in two different ways. One, publicly, but then there's also the private, like how you handle that. And so I was curious if you have any thoughts or have had any experience with dealing with just negativity. I mean, I feel like the weight of positivity is like way past the negative stuff, but I'm just curious how someone else deals with it.
Yeah, but I mean, you can get 100 positive comments, and you get that one jerk on there who's just having a bad day, and it just completely pisses you off. That's the way it used to be for me. I used to, the negative comments or the just negative people in general used to kind of really bring me down. But after the whole Google Plus integration thing, it got so easy to just delete them and ban them from the channel. So that's what I do. If I get a negative comment, like I think it was yesterday or the day before, just somebody being a complete jerk. There's a difference between constructive criticism and then just being a jerk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I get something like that, it's not worth the time in the day. Those comments aren't what brought you to where you are. They don't produce any type of positive motivation. So just as soon as you read them, delete them and go about your business. Don't give them any kind of. If somebody posts something negative like that, they're wanting an interaction, or else they wouldn't post it. So if you feed the fuel or feed the fire by just commenting and firing back at them, then that's just what they want. So just delete it, ban them, and then get back to the positivity.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the way I've gone about it. I tend to, I'll spend a few minutes trying to think of something really funny to say back rather than mean, but then I end up not saying anything. That's probably best. But
yeah, and also though, if you go to someone's YouTube video or something and you see 20 or 30 negative comments that are just sitting there, I think that sometimes breeds more comments. So if you just completely eliminate negativity from your channel, then nobody sees it, and they're not going to want to kind of think towards that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess on this kind of same vein here, here's another one for both of us. What's some good advice for someone who wants to get into making woodworking videos? So that's probably more specifically about woodworking videos rather than just general channel management or whatever. But yeah, what kind of advice do you have for that?
Short and sweet and to the point. If there's a bunch of dead space, then you got to have something happening. As far as what I've learned, you've got to have something happening to keep the eyeballs moving. If it's just a 14-second of a clip of just a 2x4 going through the table saw, then it's just keep it short to the point and experiment with it. Look at your analytics and see what's performing well and see what's not.
Yeah, I agree with that. People have different styles as far as what they include, like what shots to include.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you just have to experiment with. I'm one that I show every single step. Now I do it at like 20 times the speed sometimes, but I want to make sure to show every single thing. But other people, they find it more effective to tell their story by doing an overview type thing.
Yeah.
It's really just what you're trying to, whether it's motivation or education or there's a different reason why people do YouTube videos, and I think it just has more to do with that than anything else.
Absolutely, and it's somewhat personal too, because everyone has a different style. But just generally speaking, watching somebody else do woodworking is boring. Just generally speaking. So you got to do something, as far as I'm concerned, to keep the eyes moving. Just people can get bored so easily on YouTube, and YouTube is good about having all kinds of distractions around your stuff, to where if the second they get bored, they're going to clicking on something else.
Yeah. I guess one more thing I would think about too is if you don't have a lot of experience making, doing video work, which most people don't. They have a camera and they decide they want to make YouTube videos. That's perfectly fine. That's the way to do it. But I think jumping in without thinking about what you're going to do ahead of time can be really detrimental. Detrimental. I think it's a good idea to maybe not plan every shot or anything that complicated, but to have an idea going into a project as I'm going to make a box, and I'm going to film that box. Now, what about that particular project is interesting for somebody else to see? And focus your effort, your filming effort, and your technical effort on capturing that thing that makes this project unique and interesting to somebody else. So I think it's really easy, like you're saying, to show every single cut, the entire thing, and everything ends up equally weighted to where somebody spends just as much time watching a 2x4 get cut as they do seeing somebody cut some interesting joinery. Now, between those two things, the joinery is the thing that you want to show off, the thing that you want someone else to be drawn to. So I think it helps just to look at your project ahead of time and kind of plan out, like, what's the important thing here? What am I trying to get across? But
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Jay, what is your fascination with 2x4s? Not that it's a bad thing, just love watching you make from them. Just curious.
Well, I don't have any hardwood suppliers around me. I live in the middle of Mississippi, which is, you got to drive everywhere to get anything, it seems like. And I don't have any hardwood suppliers, so it's just the hardwood at Lowe's and the local place is actually Lowe's is the only place I can get hardwood. It's expensive. It's very expensive. Well, 2x4s are pretty cheap, and my wallet likes cheap. So at the end of the day, my wallet makes that decision.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't start doing anything with hardwood until
pallets.
I don't know, maybe pallets 9 or 10 months ago or something. It's unrealistic to, unless you have a really specific reason, it's unrealistic to go buy hardwood stuff.
I think I bought maybe 1 or 2 boards that are hardwoods, but just about everything that I've made from hardwoods has been reclaimed stuff. Like I used to do a lot of reclaiming out of sofas and mattresses and stuff like that. But wow, does that get time consuming, and it takes a lot of effort to actually get some good, decent amount of wood. But it's just so expensive. And pallets are free, but man, they eat up your tools, and there's a certain style that you can tell that it's pallet wood. So 2x4s are cheap, and that's the way I go. I'm cheapskate.
Yeah, I've said it before too that pallets are free, but they're not free.
Yeah.
The pallet is free, the wood's not free. There's a difference. All right, let's see. Hey Jay, if you could, this is from Nick Ferry. Hey Nick. Hey Jay, if you could build one more woodworking project, what would it be?
It would definitely be a rolling tiny house. Before I met my wife, I had a really junky, beat up trailer home, and nothing wrong with that. It was a learning experiment in my life, but I didn't think I would ever, at that point, I didn't think I'd ever have anything nice. And I always wanted to, this was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I've still wanted to do this, build a small rolling tiny home. That way, if something happened, I could always just go someplace else. And I love the idea of going small with these homes. There's a couple of YouTube channels, I can't even think the name right now, but there's a couple of YouTube channels I subscribe to, nothing but small economical homes. And I just think that's very fascinating, considering most of the people these days are just big, larger homes that they never spend any time in. So it'd definitely be a rolling tiny home, all wood rolling tiny home.
Nice. That would be awesome. I'll send you a link later. I did some furniture for a tiny home that fit in a parking space, and
that's awesome.
The part I did was just part of it, but the whole project was amazing. It was really cool.
That is so cool.
Let's see, both. How much longer does it take to make a project when filming it compared to just making a project? I would say it takes probably 50% longer, just the filming part. I think the preparation, for me, because you do the same thing, I worked really hard on trying to make sure that what I'm doing is captured in a way that you can actually see it. It's not, blocked by my arm or blocked by another tool, or and I work on lighting and stuff. So I think the effort there, I think doubles the time for me personally. What about you?
Same thing. And that's also another quick tip back to that other question of getting started and making woodworking videos. Always show what is going on. Don't be in between what's at the action and the camera. It's kind of hard to do sometimes, but you gotta. It's a different way of making your project. You have to have the action being shown. Um, but I'd say that's about right. About 50% longer to physically record it, and then the video itself just totally depends on what the outcome is going to be. Like, if it's just a fast cut up, no talking kind of video, like my Mox and Vice was. I mean, it felt like that to edit that video. Or if it's just something really in depth, like the what is that one? The French cleat router table I did. That thing took forever to edit the video. So it just depends on what you want the outcome, or what you want the outcome of the video to be. But as far as actually physically making it, I'd say about 50% longer, something like that.
Yeah, and I would expect that your editing, in a lot of cases, takes like longer than normal for other people, because you do a lot of the, time matching for the hits to the music and things like that, and that's an extra effort that definitely stands out in the editing process.
I appreciate that. It does take a long time. I think it was like 8 or 10 hours to edit that router table video, which the Mox and Vice probably took 20-30 minutes.
Wow. Do you keep track of projects at the end of one? Do you go back and say, yeah, I spent X hours editing this project, so I keep that in mind, or is it just
not real, not concrete numbers. I just know that, hey, this took a long time to do it this style. This didn't take a long time. Nice Star Wars cut, by the way. Yeah, nothing too concrete with the numbers.
I'll just show my cup so everybody knows what we're talking about. It's got quotes all over it. It's from my mom, whose birthday is today, and she's watching, so happy birthday, Mom. All right, so let's move on. From David, the Drunken Woodworker. Where do you find inspiration? I'll leave that open to interpretation. Yeah, what about you?
Well, first, I don't know. I guess just like something like Pinterest. It's all on the internet. I don't really have anything locally that I get inspiration from, but I pretty much decide what I'm going to make before I decide how it's going to look. So once I figure out what I want to make, then I'm just going to go look for stuff that I think is in that same kind of genre or whatever, and then try and take bits and pieces and see what I like, and then maybe try and add my own twist on it. But nothing in particular, really.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if I have inspiration. I think most of the projects that I make are usually filling a need, and need is a very loose term there. It's solving a problem, maybe be a better way to say it. So I'll have something, my sons need a bed. I have 3 sons, and so we need to build bunk beds, and so that's why I made bunk beds. So a lot of the stuff I do is very practical in that it's purpose built, maybe is a good way to say it too. I'm working on some stuff now that is definitely not necessary. It's fun and it's unnecessary, but it's serving a purpose. It's filling a specific thing within our house and within my shop. So those are going to be fun videos coming up soon.
All right.
Let's see. Jay, are you going to Woodworking in America in Winston-Salem?
I am not. Unfortunately, I can't make it. I just went to Virginia at the end of August. Yeah, at the end of August, and I just can't make 2 trips that close together. So I'm not. Maybe next year, wherever it's going to be. My luck, it'll be like, the northwest corner of Washington or something. But
yeah, that's what I'm expecting. That's why I'm going this year, because it's probably as close as it'll ever be to me. So
yeah, it'll be in like Seattle next year or something like that.
I've talked to a few people and asked them if they were going this year, and they said, one person said, no, I'm on the every other year plan, and this is the year I don't get to go. So that's kind of a bummer.
Every other year plan.
Yeah, I think that might have been dictated by his wife, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Hey Jay, love your channel. As a 15-year-old, I don't have much space to work with. My shop is 10 by 10. How do you manage space?
Keep it clean. That's before I do every project. You've got to. The way I work, I've got to clean it up, or else I'm going to get so frustrated with crap being in my way. So I always build the entire project, get it done, get it completely out of the way, and wait until right before I'm going to build the next one, and completely take, a shop that size, 15, 20 minutes. If you just keep at it, then clean it up real good, and you have a fresh start. And also, I've noticed with a fresh, clean shop, you just feel better about being in there. I'm more productive in a cleaner shop. I guess that comes back to the frustration thing, but just clean it up, and your space will feel bigger.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe the small shop dilemma is a bigger deal for me than it is for you. I mean, yours is much bigger now than it was a couple of months ago. For me, I've worked real hard at laying mine out in a way because I have smaller than a one-car garage, so it's maybe,
Holy cow,
I don't know, 10 feet wide and maybe 15, 20 feet long. And so one of the things that I thought ahead about a lot was sharing surfaces. So anytime that there's a surface between two tools that can work together, I tried to find a way to stick them together. And I still have plans for some of this. I haven't done it all, but like in the case of a miter saw station, so you need the extension on each side so that you can put long pieces on there. Well, you also need an extension for a joiner. So there's no reason that those two things couldn't be built into the same big piece so that the surface is shared or can be adjusted to be shared or something like that. Same for my work table, which is pretty common. My work table is my outfeed table for my table saw. So I think that's one thing you can do is just try to share surfaces that are common and get things up off the floor as much as possible, because floor space is, even if it's just for walking around, that's going to make your space feel a lot more open. So I have a shelf that runs the full width of my shop, and it's just a maybe 6-inch deep shelf, but it's where I put all my finishing stuff, all my paint, all that is up there, so that means I don't have to have another cabinet on the floor to hold that stuff. So I would say getting things off the floor and sharing surfaces for me are two things.
Sharing surfaces is really a big thing, and like you said, getting stuff on the walls. It's a lot of people suggested that I make a rolling clamp rack, and the footprint in your shop is the most valuable space that you have. So the more stuff you can get on the walls, like you said, the better. And also, don't limit yourself to just your shop. Steve Ramsey, he's got a full 2-car garage, and he builds half of his stuff outside. So don't necessarily just limit yourself that you have to make it inside the shop, if at all possible, that you can go outside.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before I had this dedicated space, and you can see it in the majority of my videos, I had to take all my saws outside to do the work, which is a big pain, but I have a lot more space outside than I had inside, so it worked out. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Great show. Do you have any advice for how to bring more girls and women into making and woodworking?
Unfortunately, I'm going to say I have absolutely zero advice. All of my female friends and relatives and my wife have absolutely zero interest in what I do and woodworking. So, I mean, I don't know. I have absolutely no clue how to answer that one.
I think for me, I'm a little bit into that because I'm wrapped up in it because I have a daughter who's 5 and she's just starting to really get interested in picking out the things that she's interested in, and then my wife has had some experience building some things in the past, and so she's interested. And but I think it maybe has less to do with women and more to do with people about rather than dragging someone into the thing that you know and the thing that you're interested in, you need to find a product that they're interested in and figure out how what you do can enable that product to happen. So for my daughter, she loves dolls and she loves to play, dress up, and she loves all this stuff. And so I was trying to figure out how to get her in the shop and how to help her make something. Well, the thing we came up with was a tiny little stage, and that was something that would fit into her perspective on things and the things that she was interested in. But it was using the skill that I have and the tools that I have and the, all this stuff to enable her to be able to do something that fits into the interest that she has. So I think whether it's woodworking or whether it's anything else, if you know somebody who loves robots, well, there you go. Find a way to build a simple robot with them. If you know somebody that loves cars, take them into the shop, show them how to put some wheels on a piece of plywood and make a cheap go-kart. I think it's it's easy to talk about women and girls in making and woodworking because those numbers are so low. But I think the same principle applies to people in general.
Yeah, I think I think that maybe woodworking does kind of stereotypically apply more to men, but maybe just get people exposed. Say my wife or somebody else who has no interest in woodworking, get people exposed to other women who are successful at it, who are actually doing it and making it look easy, like Anna White or Shanti Tushik or anybody else just like that. And if you can expose them to more creators that are women, then they can possibly think that, hey, well, I could do this too if they can.
Yeah, I
It's
totally
not
agree.
just guys doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this question is actually from Darbin, and if anybody has not seen her channel, they need to go see it because she makes beautiful videos and she makes great projects. And so I'm really glad you're here. Thank you for asking that, and everybody make sure to go check her out. I'll try to put a link, if I can remember, I'll try to put a link in the comments and the show notes for this below, so maybe tomorrow when the video goes up live, her link will be there. So thank you.
She also just started a movie channel for those who are interested in movies too. So.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Cool. Have you ever started? But this is for both of us. Have you ever started shooting a video of a project and ended up abandoning it because it just didn't work out as planned, or you lost interest? If so, what was it?
No, I haven't really abandoned anything. I've had a couple things that turned out like crap. Actually, man, I think there was something that I completely screwed up, and I can't think of it offhand, but I remember talking about screwing something up. But, I've tried to make me being a cheapskate, I tried to make a plywood chessboard that basically you didn't have to cut it up, but it had the appearance of, like a crisscross pattern, like you typically make a cutting board, I tried to do something like that, and I did record a little bit of it, and I just said, forget about it, dumb idea.
Yeah,
but I think that's the only one.
I don't think I've had any either that I scrapped completely that I can think of. I did actually last week have to reshoot something, and luckily that particular project was easy to undo and redo, and it wasn't a big deal. But I spent the day at I was by myself. My wife and my kids were all out, so I was like, yeah, I can be really productive today. And I went and did this thing and shot it and multiple cameras, and I came in and looked at the footage, and it was just worthless. It was just bad. And so I ended up having to take everything apart, reshoot it, and be more proactive on how the cameras were and all that stuff. So it wasn't a loss, but it was a loss of time, maybe. Let's see. This is a good one for you. Is Google SketchUp worth the massive investment?
I don't think it's a massive investment at all. I don't personally, anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just a learning curve. Once you get the program down, then it's an invaluable tool to have. And if you use one of the older versions, it's 100% free to use and for you to use for commissioned projects. So, is it worth the investment? Yes, absolutely. I would personally say, but I don't think it's a massive investment. First off, it's a zero investment financially for the free version. Now, if the question's asking, is the paid version worth it? I've never used the paid version because the free one does everything I need, so I don't know on that. But as far as actually learning SketchUp, is learning it and incorporating it worth the time investment? Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's also a lot of different levels there. That curve is a long curve, but you don't have to learn the entire curve. There's an easy way to generalize in SketchUp. Maybe if you're not going for like very specific fine-grained plans, but to generalize a way to build something that helps you visualize it before you get out and start cutting wood. So I think that's a good way to start, and you don't have to know all the ins and outs. Now, obviously, if you spend a little bit of time learning what the tools do, then it's going to be easier for you to get the ideas that you have onto the screen. But I have an article, and you have tons of SketchUp resource on your site, so definitely everybody should go check there. I do have a really quick overview of the basic tools on a blog post on my site from, I don't know, a year or two ago or something. And it was because I wanted to learn SketchUp. I didn't know it at all, so I started watching a couple videos, and I just kind of kept track of, like, well, I need to be able to make this type of basic thing. Here's the tool that does that, and I wrote down what it did. And then when I made this blog post, it was just like, really high-level overview of how to use this tool, what it's for, and I think a lot of people have found that overview really helpful to get off the ground. So I would say it's definitely worth the investment, and it's maybe not as big of an investment as you think it is, looking at it ahead of time. Let's see. Oh, do either of you see a time when YouTube becomes oversaturated with woodworking channels? And if so, how do you feel your channels would do in the long run?
I don't think there's oversaturation. I don't think there would be oversaturation because, simply put, I mean, everybody who's on there right now, I don't think we've all reached the amount of people who would be interested in it, in woodworking. So, Steve, has, I don't know, 300 and something thousand subscribers. Well, there's probably, just throwing a number out here, but there's probably several million people in the United States who are interested in woodworking. They just haven't found woodworking on YouTube. So as far as being oversaturated, no, I don't think so. I don't think it'll, if it ever happens, I don't think it'll be anytime soon. And as far as, what was the other part of that question?
How would our channels do?
Well, I think ours would do all right, but it's just a matter of if it gets saturated or something like that at that time, then that's when you would probably have to invest more time into making your product better. And at that time, you become a product, because you're literally competing if it's oversaturated, so you have to make it yours better. So I don't know. I don't think anybody who's on YouTube right now would be at a disadvantage at that time.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to look at the growth because, I mean, you've been on longer than I have, and in the time that I have, the number of channels that have to do with this type of stuff is just exponentially growing, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But you can also see people get really excited about it at first. They make a few videos, and then they realize that it's time-consuming, or they find something else they're interested in, or whatever. So just because a new channel pops up doesn't mean that it's going to be evergreen, that it's going to be something that's going to continue, that the creator is going to continue to create that content indefinitely. So I think even though as a general bubble there may be more growth, a lot of those people are going to use it and do it to a point, and then they're going to move on to something else. I kind of did the same thing with music on YouTube. I did music videos and video songs and collaborations and stuff for a couple of years, and then I just kind of got worn out from it, and so I stopped doing that. And so I haven't done that in a while, and that happened a lot with independent music. I think I could definitely see the same thing happening with how-to content, generally.
Yeah.
I also think that I totally agree with what you said about the total number of people that would be interested in, compared to the number of subscribers that a lot of people have. And I lost my train of thought. I think that maybe right now people look at how-to content and DIY content as woodworking content, because right now a lot of people do that. But there's a lot of other how-to content happening at the same time, and there's a lot of crossover. I hope that I'm a good example of that, but I don't know if I am or not. But I think as the mass of how-to channels grows, there will be some splintering, and there will be some, not in a bad way, but there will be some like focused, these people are very specifically woodworking. These are the turning people that you want to watch if you're into turning. These are the construction, like home construction, or very specific groups of people that are very targeted and are really good at what they do. And those splits will start to happen, I think, a little bit more as the general population of creators grows. And it'll be easier to find something that's really specific to you, something that you're really interested in, I think. So I don't think that massive growth is going to be a bad thing for consumers, for creators. I think it would be good in the long run, personally.
I agree.
Hey guys, how do you split your time building a project, editing, social media, or marketing? So we kind of already talked about the project versus editing, but the social media and marketing thing is another good thing. Oh, that's Jack. Jack Howling.
Hey, what's up, Jack? Um, I used to, I used to just like, I've got phone notifications. If something happens on my phone, or if something happens, I get notified on my phone, and I just pull it up, instantly reply, be done with it, and go about my day. Which here lately, that's becoming way too time-consuming. So I've tried to make it a habit of, all right, you're only going to answer emails one time a day, which still doesn't happen. As long as my computer's on, I've got Thunderbird, and I try to respond as soon as I get them. But I'm just trying to get it to where I only mess with it one or two times a day because social media it can really draw you in and waste a lot of your time, and it has for me for a long time wasted a bunch of my time. So, bottom line, you got to prioritize. Projects are obviously number one. Project and the video is number one, and then getting it out there. And once it's out there, then you can play around with social media as far as marketing it. But I'm pretty much don't really have any other hobbies other than woodworking, so I do actually have a little bit more time to mess around with this as far as social media and all the interaction goes. So just value your time and figure out what has to be first.
Yeah, I think prioritization is a really big thing there because I'm one, I don't mean this in a braggy way at all, but I'm one that really values my time. To me, my time is more valuable than it is to anyone else. I understand that because I have a family, I have a full-time job, and this is a hobby. So I have to be very intentional about how I spend the time that I dedicate to this. I also have to do it about everything else, but this time I have to be very intentional about how I break it up. So I'm the same as you. Is I try to focus on emails to do with YouTube and all that stuff in a very short amount of time. I try to respond to comments quickly, get them out of the way, and just move on with things. But when it comes to like generating, media for thumbnails for videos and the blog post headers and all that, there's just a bunch of pieces for every piece of content that you put out. As I prepare a project, I'll focus. I'm going to spend an hour at the end of my workday, after my workday on so-and-so day. That's when I'm going to generate all that content for the next project or for the next two projects or whatever. And I just try to batch that stuff so that I don't end up moving from thing to thing. There's a guy I listen to a podcast, and one of the things he talks about is the cost of task switching. And so even if you have 5 things that you're going to do today, if you bounce between those 5 things all day long, you're going to lose a lot more time than if you were to do one, complete it fully, then move to the next one, complete it fully. And at the end of the day, you'll actually have time left over. So I try to batch production of assets for blog posts and thumbnails and all that stuff all at one time. Try to do all my email at one time. I try to do editing that way, but it's a little bit harder just because there's a bigger volume of time. But I really don't think there's a formula to it. It's really individual how you spend your time, how much time you have to give, and what your priorities are. But let's see here. This is from Sterling. Hey, Jay and Bob, when do you say to yourself it's time for a website, and what benefits you for having it, and is it worth it? I think for me, this all started as a website. Originally I started my site as a way to justify time in the shop, and so I knew that if I was going to be out here building something, I needed something out of it that was going to be beneficial that I could justify. So putting how-to content online was a way for me to do that. Then as I moved into YouTube, the site just became this kind of repository for all the content that I create, whether it's blog posts, whether it's videos, whether it's podcast stuff, whether it's this, and so for me the site is the repository now, and different people use it for different things. But that's, for me, I started there. So, what about you?
I'm completely backwards of what you said. I started YouTube first, which led to the website. But also, Now, just generally speaking, when's the best time for a website? That depends on what your objective is. If you're wanting to monetize something, then the best time is yesterday to start a website. And if you're just wanting to just, casual blog or casual just, whatever, then, just you can do it whenever. But how I started my website was I got into the YouTube thing first and made a couple videos, and then I wanted to provide some type of a plan or I think it was just actual diagrams for my projects. And I used to host them on Dropbox and post a Dropbox link into the description. And I thought, well, that's silly. Why don't I just make a website that has the some type of value, which is the downloaded content, to have people come to the website. And then at that point, I looked into how to monetize a website and how much money you could actually make, and it's just another way of me paying for my hobby. So that's why I started my website, but it just depends on what you want to do as far as I'm concerned. If you're wanting to make money online with a website, then the best time to start was yesterday.
Yeah, we totally agree with that. Let's see, I saw one on here about, oh yeah, here it is. Jay, with your knowledge of SketchUp, do you have any interest in eventually working with the CNC router?
I have a lot of interest with a CNC router, but my wallet doesn't. I actually worked, let's see, this was in 2008 or 2009. I worked in the frame mill at an Ashley furniture factory, and I actually ran a 4-foot by 8-foot Como router. It was a single table Como router, and I had to program the pieces from SolidWorks into the nesting program for the router, and that was just unbelievably interesting, and just having full control over what cuts where, and of course the pieces, and the whole concept of a CNC router is just, it's very interesting to me. But for what I do, I don't have any, I can't just think of projects to make with it. So, because, what is that, Shake Poco, what's that called?
Shape Poco?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How big is it? It's like, what, 24 by 24 or something like that? It's not that big.
No, the cutting area is 12 by 12.
Oh, 12 by 12. So, I mean, I guess there's a whole lot of things that you can do with it, but just my thinking on the projects, I would just at first be lost of, well, what do I make? So I don't know. I've got some interest into it. My wallet doesn't. We'll see who wins in the end.
Speaking of that, there's one here for me. What's my planned upgrade path for the Shapeoko? That's my CNC machine that we're talking about here. And if you don't know, it's a very upgradable machine. It's open source hardware, so pretty much every part of it can be updated with a bigger motor or whatever. So you can do a lot of upgrades to it. I think the next thing I'm going to do, I bought a trim router, DeWalt, kind of one of the mini routers, and I'm going to replace the cutting tool, the spindle, which is now basically an off-brand Dremel tool. So I'm going to replace that with a powerful router, and part of replacing that is building some mounts that fit the size of it and everything. So there's some other parts I have to create to mount that. I'm going to do that, and then I really don't have a plan for anything else that I want to do to it. I don't have the room to make it bigger. I would like to make it bigger, but I just don't physically have the room in here. And if anything, I might upgrade the motors to be a little bit the bigger stepper motors that are more powerful. But I don't have a specific reason to do that. I think it's just, it'd be cool, But the changing out the cutting tool there's a real benefit to that, because it will make better cuts faster, and you can do different materials and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm headed with it. Jay, you loosely touched on welding a bit. Just wondering why you got a stick welder versus a MIG or flux core welder.
That was at the apartment complex. It was their purchase for me to fix guardrails, and that was the cheapest one Harbor Freight had. And with most investment properties, cheap is the way to go. So that's just the one that they bought. I personally don't have one. The welder was theirs, and I made the welding cart for me to get it around the property, which turned out pretty good. But as far as the welder, which I'd actually probably, well, I don't have any experience with anything other than a stick welder. I've always used a stick welder. Back in high school, my neighbor was my uncle, and he had, I think it was an old Lincoln welder where you had to physically take the wire out and stick it into the next socket for the different temperatures or whatever. I don't know much about them, but he had one of those, and I played around with it and got pretty handy with it, and then didn't play with welding for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and then recently the company I worked for had to buy one, so that's just the one I got.
Yeah, for me, when I got a welder, I just got a MIG because that was, it seemed with the little research I'd done, it seemed like the most effective / cheapest option. I could get stuff done with it, especially what I was trying to do at the time, which was just basic sheet metal connection stuff. And it seemed like the cheapest way to be able to do that reasonably. But I think it all has to do with application, really. Let's see. Have you ever thought about going back to redo a video that you've already published, say one of your earlier videos, because of quality or knowing a better way to do the project now? You've done that, haven't you?
Yes, I've done it a couple times, I think. I've just off the top of my head, the pocket hole step stool, I made a second one. Well, the first one was a gift for somebody else, and then I happened to have a need for it, and I said, well, might as well just make another one. I think that's the only one that I've actually 100% redone, but my big 2x10 picnic table plan, the video is just horrible, but you can't delete it because it's on there making money, and it's kind of embarrassing to watch older videos like that. But this coming spring that we'll have, I'm going to probably remake that one into a more concise, like 6 or 7 minute video, and if you want plans, go see the website kind of thing. But I think that's it. A lot of my older videos just suck. A lot of my videos I think kind of suck, but the older ones especially, and I would not mind redoing the 2x4 armchairs and the blanket chest and the picnic table. I think that's it. And there's a couple other of the older ones that I want to not duplicate, but I want to put another twist on them. Like I want to combine the 2x4 porch swing. I want to make that, but with the horse bench back. And I think that would be pretty cool. But other than that, it's just my old videos suck.
It's easy to look back and be disappointed, But for me, I don't think I will probably ever go back and do any of mine again unless I can come up with a different twist or something. Just because I don't know. I think I would feel bad about doing another, video of the exact same thing or something. Also, just my personality is like once I've built something and I've had the experience of doing that, there's probably not a big reason for me to do it again, unless I just really need another one, So, and the list of things that I want to do for projects it doubles, every couple months. I mean, it's just constantly growing way faster than I can check things off the list. So
True.
I would rather spend that time, chasing a new project rather than going back and rehashing an old one. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm disappointed with certain things about some of my old projects, but not to the point to where I would redo them. If anything, I would just take the video down.
What about projects? Have you made any projects that don't have a video to them, but you'd like to, I don't know, make another one because they were an easy project and that, hey, that could be a quick video? What about that?
Yeah, I have some of those. I mean, I don't know that they'd be quick videos, but I think just some stuff around the house. I did some lighting fixtures in our living room and some end tables, and it's stuff I've built over the years, way before I got into this, that it would be cool to do videos of those. But at the same time, I don't need any more end tables, and I don't need any more light fixtures, and so I can't really justify what am I going to do with them when I'm done with the video. So, do you have anything like that?
Kind of the same thing. There's in my revisiting past projects video a couple weeks ago, the main trash can that we use in the kitchen. I love the design, but I hate the way that the stain is. So I'm probably going to remake it. And I never made a video on it because that was before the website YouTube thing for me. And I'd like to redo it and also There's a 2x4 and a 2x6 bunk bed that I made. I made several bunk beds before YouTube and the website that I'd like to make another one, but I just have to talk my wife into putting it in the spare bedroom first. She doesn't want a bunk bed, so she'll probably win on that one.
Yeah, but you can have people sleep over. All right, so let's see, we got a couple more. Jay, did you design your own shirts? And if so, did you make them as well?
I design them in GIMP. GIMP is like free Photoshop. I use it to design it. Well, actually, I take my SketchUp images and put them into GIMP, and then design them in GIMP. And then from there, I don't want anything to do with making them in different sizes, having them sent to me, and then me having overhead on hand that I have to send out. So I saw, Steve Ramsey did his Wood Shop A, which has awesome shirts on there, but it's through Spreadshirt.com. So I went on there and just signed up for an account, and it goes through them. That way, once I have a design out and put it up there, then I don't have to mess with it because my hobby is woodworking and my hobby is not selling t-shirts. So it's just a way to help show your support or whatever, but as far as me physically making them and sending them out, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, it is. That's what I do, and it is an extra thing to do. But luckily, I wouldn't say luckily, I don't really have the volume to where it interrupts what I do. That's another thing I batch at the end of the week. So I'll get orders throughout the week, and then on Friday afternoons, I'll package everything up and get them all ready. Monday morning, I go ship them out before work, and that's when I do it. But it is an extra thing to do. So. Jay and Bob, what kind of editing software do you use? I personally am a Mac user, so I use Final Cut Pro X, and it's great. I know a lot of people that use iMovie, and it's free and seems to work really well, but I use Final Cut Pro. So, what about you?
I started out editing videos in Linux, and for that, the best editing program I found in Linux is Kdenlive, and of course it's all completely free. It's Linux, and that worked out really well for a long time. And then I decided to invest some money into a nice, well, it was nice when I built it. Now it's just outdated, but a nice video editing computer. And I realized that Kdenlive does not play well with multiple cores. I've got a Xeon processor in this, and it's a 4-core with 4 cores hyper-threading or something like that. Basically, it's like 4 virtual cores. So it's Windows looks at it as an 8-core machine, I think, and it really wasn't being maximized in Kdenlive, and I didn't really see hardly any performance gain. So I switched back over to Windows, unfortunately, and right now I use Sony Movie Studio Platinum 12, which is like $35-40, something like that. And there's some newer versions ahead of that, but I have absolutely no need to upgrade. It just does everything I need it to do.
Gotcha. I saw another kind of on that on the camera side of it. Tyler asked, it's asking me, but I'm curious actually what you use. What camera do you use for video recording, and best advice for YouTube channel growth? I currently use a Canon T2i, which is not really a new camera. They're on the T5i now, but that's what I use. And then I have a GoPro, and those are the two that I use for all my recording. So, what do you use?
Pretty much the same thing. It's a Canon T3i, which is basically the same thing you're using, but it's got a little flip-out screen. That's pretty much the only difference. I think it's the exact same sensor size. And I also use Magic Lantern on mine. Do you use Magic Lantern firmware?
No, I tried to install it a couple weeks ago, and I didn't have the right SD card, so one is in the mail.
Oh, man. It unlocks a lot more features that are on the more expensive programs and or more expensive Canons. And this little thing is awesome. You can change the lens and just, you can stick with this camera forever and just change the lens as needed. And then I just got one of these GoPro Hero 3s, and it's stinking awesome. I like it. It's just really cool for shots that you can't really get into with the other camera. And if you are going to get one of these little spidery kind of tripods are stinking awesome. They can grab onto anything. But that being said, you don't need a fancy camera to do, woodworking videos on YouTube. You can pretty much standard cell phones these days have a really good 1080p camera on them, and you know the first 99 videos I put on YouTube were all from my first generation Samsung Galaxy S cell phone. So you don't absolutely need a really fancy camera. It does help, but you don't need it.
Yeah, I know there are several people who put out like really quality videos, and they use their phones. You know, and that's all they. I think for me that would get maybe cumbersome. Just as much footage as I shoot, to have it on my phone and have to like, plug the phone in, take it off, and whatever. But it's totally possible. And if you already have a phone in your pocket, it's basically a free way to do it. So. Yeah,
and if you've already got a phone and you're wanting to start making videos, just try it first. Don't drop some money on a camera until you know that this is something I want to proceed with,
Yeah. Also, as far as the camera, I'm glad you brought up the lens thing, because that's something I've been asked about my camera several times, but I've never talked about my lens. I have the stock lens, and then I also have a 50 millimeter. And you'll see some of my shots that have a really narrow depth of field, and they're really up close. And that's from that 50 millimeter lens. It doesn't zoom. It's a fixed lens, and it has a really small depth of field, which I think is one of the things that can make a particular shot look, really different from just a standard camera. But there's all sorts of different lenses, different quality, different price range, but once you go down the path of starting to buy lenses, you're going to be dumping some money into it. So keep that in mind. Let's see. We only have time for a couple more. It's almost 10:30, and so we'll pick a couple more here. Jay, do you still work at the apartment complex?
I wasn't going to say anything about that until I was asked. So the Friday, it was August 22nd. The Friday before I went to go see my wife was my last day there. I've finally reached the point where it's just like it's the same amount of money for me to do my online thing as it is to work there, and I'd much rather invest in me and my future and not somebody else's future. So I finally took the plunge, and since then, just working from home, doing this, and I've also got a couple more online obligations, so it's not just 100% my content here. So I do a couple other things, but no, I no longer work at the apartment complex.
Oh, well, good for you. That's a probably scary, but probably really awesome jump to make. So that's awesome.
It is both.
Let's see. There was another one on here. There was one at some point, and I can't seem to find the question now, but it was actually about the collaboration you did with the ladies from Shanty to Chic. And it was, I can't find the question, but it was, do you have any more plans to work with them? Do you have anything in the pipeline that you can talk about with them?
I have. That's one of my online obligations. I make all of their, I just make all their PDF plans. It's not nothing really that I physically do for them, or we don't really collaborate. I make their plans, and that's just it. I just make their plans. They've hired me to do that, and it's working out all right. It's pretty cool because I get to see all the stuff that they come up with before it gets out there on their website. And hey, if you guys haven't checked out shanty2chic.com, they have a lot of easy projects that look like $1 billion when they're done. So if you don't want to get too crazy with woodworking and you just want to keep it simple, then check it out. And thanks, David, Drunken Woodworker. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure he's right there with you. Let's see. Let's see if I can find one more really good one, and we'll call it a night. Okay. So far, as from Tyler, so far all the videos I've made are woodworking content. My brand is DIY. But I'm worried about posting more of the DIY stuff, cars, screening, etc. What's your advice?
My advice would be to look at your analytics and look at what videos are bringing in the most of your audience. And if they are, you said, I guess you said some of them they're all woodworking, but they're not all. I would say that you probably have some that are more difficult than others, and see which ones are bringing in the more people. If more of the DIY kind of woodworking stuff is bringing in people, then introduce some stuff, or just flat out introduce it. And if it doesn't do well, then if your objective is to make a living on it, then don't proceed with it. But I don't know. I mean, if you haven't done anything to this point and you're doing well, then you may not want to introduce something that may jeopardize that or whatever. But that's kind of why I started putting all of my shorter, vlog stuff on a different channel. I don't want to. I've already grown an audience with my normal project content. I don't want to, not to say spam them, but I don't want to throw a bunch of stuff at them that they're not used to seeing from that particular channel. So, also, if the exact same topic, if you're not already subscribed to, check out Video Creators YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/video creators. He is nothing but helping you grow your channel, and nothing but video tips and the ins and outs, not just like physically how to record a video, but just the ins and out of growing your audience on YouTube. So he has like a 10-minute video on that, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely check out his website. Or his YouTube channel. He'll be more able to give you better guidance than I think I would.
Yeah, there's another good resource that's actually put up by YouTube. It's the YouTube Creator Academy, I think is the name of the channel. I don't know the actual URL of it, but you'll be able to find it really easily. And they have a crazy amount of videos about all sorts of topics, about analytics, about branding, about audience retention, all this stuff. And it's almost more than you could possibly watch. But there's a lot of stuff on there about branding, about how important it is, and that's one thing that's really important to me. And specifically to what you're asking about your brand being something, but you have other interests, I think your brand is recognition. It shouldn't be defining. Like the words that you use, the name that you go by should not define necessarily what you can or cannot do on your channel. It's just a recognition. So, I mean, my brand is general enough on purpose that I can make whatever I want and it still is covered under my name. But I think do it yourself, DIY, is kind of the same way. It just means that you're not hiring somebody else to do it. So whether that's car repair, whether that's like, I don't know, making aprons or whatever, if you're doing it yourself, I think it falls under that. So as you move forward, if you want to expand the type of content that you have, but you want to maintain a certain brand, just try to figure out a way to make that brand that you already have wrap around what you want to do. And I would definitely say, if you want to be making videos about cars, make videos about cars, even if they're not popular at first. Because when somebody who's interested in that stuff finds your channel and they see you doing something that you care about, something that you're really interested in, they're going to notice it and they're going to be drawn to it. And so even if you had a woodworking audience now, but that's not really what you wanted to do, or not only what you wanted to do, and you started doing other stuff and you lost that audience, eventually you're going to find an audience that's into what you're doing because you love it. And I think that on top of, or that combined with a solid brand, a consistent brand, I think will take you to an audience, and I don't think you'll have any trouble finding an audience, personally. I'm really big on branding because I came from a marketing kind of web design background, and I can see the power of it. So, yeah, I don't know that I have anything else to say about that, but that's it. So it's after 10:30, so I want to let Jay go so he can have the rest of his night. But thank you guys so much for watching and for asking questions, and there's a bunch we didn't get to. Hopefully we can do this again sometime if Jay will come back in the future.
Heck yeah.
So, all right. Anything you want to tell everybody about? Anything you have coming up that you want to, pitch?
Nothing really. It's just the same old, trying to keep up with one video a week. I may not have actually now I'm thinking about it, I may not have a actual woodworking video this weekend because the next thing I am making is 2 bathroom vanities, and it's kind of a rather large project that I don't want to really rush for a video, so I may not get them done by this weekend, but I'll still have something on the main channel, maybe something about the tool or something, I don't know. But other than that, it's just the same old.
All right, cool. Well, everybody, if you're not already, which I'm sure you are, subscribe to Jay's channel, but if not, please go subscribe. And this video will go up both in video form and in podcast form in the next day or two. So if you've enjoyed it, please share it around. That helps me and will help Jay quite a bit. So thanks, guys, for being here and for the questions, and we'll see you next time.